A major update regarding Lewis's Ferrari move has been revealed. FIA has updated the 2026 car regulations, and Franco's ties to Red Bull could change the grid for next season. Do consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get into the latest F1 news. McLaren team principal Andrea Stella explained recent changes to the F1 2026 regulations have resulted in the future cars having much higher downforce and more freedom over their designs. Williams boss James Vowles added these tweaks will be good for the sport, as the F1 2026 grid could shape up to feature different designs as well as cars which are closer in performance to the current challengers. Recent regulation adjustments by the FIA have resulted in an improvement in what was predicted by FIA single-seater director Nicolas Tombazis to work out at 2 seconds per lap, bringing performance up to something very close to the current cars based on early findings. With all new power units as well as a brand new chassis from 2026, these will be sweeping changes for which the teams have long been anticipating, with work officially allowed to commence on their 2026 builds in the new year. Following recent tweaks to the regulations, however, Stella said there is now more scope for design freedom for the teams, alongside improved car performance. With the recent release of the car geometry, especially from an aerodynamic point of view, basically two main things have been achieved. One is a much higher downforce level, and the second one is more freedom, Stella explained to reporters in Brazil. We welcome both. We welcome more freedom. I think this will give teams the possibility to just use their knowledge, use their methodologies, the knowledge that has been accrued over the years, even if with different regulations, is a way of creating some differentiation. So we've always been advocating this kind of approach, and we welcome the fact that there will be more freedom. Vowles added the solution found between the teams and the FIA is a much better one than what came before, praising the really good work done by all involved to find a resolution quickly to help improve the cars. On the subject of designs, he said, "We now have more freedom where you could see a different direction that you're going in. So there's more flow controlling devices in place, which lead to downforce but differentiation between teams. What's been really positive as well is there's still some small areas of improvement around the diffuser. But again, what's great to see is teams and the FIA working hand in hand in order to improve that, because every time you make a change like that, it has some consequences. But I think what you're going to see now is instead of all teams working in the same few millimeters, there'll be some different concepts. I personally think that is good for the sport." Lewis Hamilton said he would like to see manual gearboxes return to Formula One one day, alongside old-school gravel traps. Hamilton took the wheel of childhood hero Ayrton Senna's 1990 McLaren MP4 Tour 5B in the wet at Interlagos at the weekend, with a H-pattern manual gearbox to handle as he fulfilled a long-held dream of his. Having went on to drive Senna's McLaren later in the weekend, a moment he would describe as being the greatest honor of my career. He explained the difference in sensation in driving with a manual gearbox compared to the semi-automatic paddle shift gearboxes the drivers handle now. Asked ahead of the weekend in Brazil about how his heel and toe braking technique is currently, given he would be driving a full manual gearbox and current Formula One cars utilize left foot braking, he replied with a smile, "I'm always heel and toeing, so it should be. No, it used to be really good when I was younger, and when I did the McLaren MP44, I was able to do it back then. It's something I miss. I wish we had that in Formula One. I mean, the two-pedal thing is just not exciting, and they need to bring back the H-box. It was awesome." Later in the same press conference, the 7-time world champion was asked if the sport has become more aggressive since he joined the grid. And while he did not believe that to be the case, there was one aspect of Formula One he believes to be different, which he would like addressing if it's safe to do so. "I think the only difference is that the tracks now have these runoff areas," he said. "I think when I joined, we didn't have these big runoff areas, so when you first get in, you really had to build up to the limit. You couldn't go beyond it, go off track and come back on, and that's something I would say the thing I noticed the most. So for example, around maybe Max Verstappen's time, or maybe just before, where they started having these big runoff areas, where the younger drivers were able to come in and really abuse those areas and not put the car on grass, for example. I think that gave them a real good cushion of betting themselves into the sport and finding the limit as where, let's say, like from Fernando Alonso's time, and before that it was, you couldn't go beyond the limit. You're in the gravel. Puhan, for example, turn 10 in Spa, there used to be grass right beyond the curb and gravel, which was definitely worrying when used to go into a corner like that. So I would say that's been the biggest shift, and it would be great to see the old school sort of way come back if possible. Gravel traps or something like that, maybe not safe, but we'll see. With the Drivers' Championship lost, and it is most certainly over, Bernie Collins is keen to see Oscar Piastri stamp his authority at McLaren to avoid a wingman role in F1 2025. Piastri found himself on the wrong end of McLaren's papaya rules this season. The Australian driver asked to play the number 2 role to Lando Norris if necessary. The McLaren teammates started the season on equal footing before Lando Norris moved into second place in the drivers' standings at the Spanish Grand Prix when he overhauled Charles Leclerc. As McLaren's MCL38 emerged as the car to beat, Norris did so as Verstappen's nearest challenger both in the standings and on the track. It had pundits questioning McLaren's team decision when Norris was ordered to move over for Piastri at the Hungarian Grand Prix to re-establish their running order prior to a pit stop call that gave Norris the undercut. 7 points were lost that day, with Norris dropping a further 3, if not more, at the Italian Grand Prix when Piastri overtook him on the opening lap in a move that allowed Charles Leclerc to also get the jump on the Briton. That was the moment that McLaren drew the line, insisting from then on that Norris would be the preferred driver as, 44 points up on Piastri, he had the better chance of reeling in Verstappen. Papaya rules were in play, but it wasn't until Brazil that they actually had an impact, as Norris was well behind Piastri in Baku, with the Aussie then trailing in the next 3 races. In Brazil, though, Piastri was on pole position for the sprint, Norris P2, and with 2 laps to go, McLaren ordered Piastri to give the win to his teammate. 24 hours later, it made no difference as Norris went from 1st to 6th in the Grand Prix, while Verstappen raced from 17th to 1st to extend his lead to 62 points. With only 86 in play, it is, as Collins put it, most certainly over for the Briton. The former Aston Martin strategist is now keen to see how Piastri reacts to that in the final 3 races of the championship. The interesting question is, the next 3 races, she said on the Sky F1 podcast, if we're saying the Drivers' Championship is done, it's not mathematically, but I understand it's most certainly there, Piastri now has a chance to say, I don't want to be number 2 driver at race 1 next year. So there'll be no more of this give up your position in the sprint race, give up your position in the main race. So I'm quite excited to see how that progresses in the next 3. Norris's chances of winning the world title, though, were by no means undone by just Hungary, Monza, and Brazil. There's more to the story. From McLaren's start to the season, the team managing just 2 podiums before their Miami Grand Prix upgrade, to Norris's bad starts where he lost positions off the line, to strategy errors, there is a lot for McLaren to examine when the post-season review begins. Just to give a little insight, the teams will track for each race where points were lost, Collins explained. Be that the first few races in car performance, how many were lost with driver errors, for want of a better word, at the start of the race? How many were lost through strategy errors, be that Canada missing the pit stop window? And there'll be a running tracker through the whole year of where points were lost in that championship and where points were lost for Red Bull as well. So they will know what the biggest points loss through the year has been, where it's come. And they will look at each of those categories, be it reliability, pit stop decisions, car pace, and they will try and fix bits from each of those. That tracker will be fully available to them. I've done it so many times with drivers in the past and saying, this was the race where you had your biggest deficit to the competition. Let's look at, is it a specific corner, a specific driving of that event, specific track, roughness, tire combined, whatever it is. So there'll be loads to work on over the winter. Just not having gone through all those numbers, the biggest thing for me seems to be this indecision or lack of trust between driver and pit wall that has caused hesitation at some decisions at some points in the year, and they'll be working on that. Every year the relationship will improve, you'll be more confident going into next year. And so, when the starts seem to have got better, maybe not explicitly this week with Russell off the line, but McLaren will look at that again in very different work conditions. So that will come and take a lot of time to reflect over the winter. McLaren could still win the Constructors' Championship, where they are 36 points up on Ferrari and a further 13 ahead of Red Bull. Deciding even before the first race of this season to leave Mercedes for Ferrari, Christian Horner says Lewis Hamilton has obviously seen things that led to his decision. Hamilton shocked the motorsport world back in February when he announced even before the first lap in a 2024 F1 car that it would be his final season with Mercedes. Exercising an escape clause in his contract, Hamilton instead signed a multi-year deal to partner Charles Leclerc at Ferrari. Red Bull team boss Horner responded to Hamilton news by saying, "He's obviously seen something there that he believes in that serves him better than staying where he is. I think for F1, a Lewis-Ferrari tie-up is really exciting." However, Mercedes Motorsport boss Toto Wolff was quick to debunk the idea that Hamilton had run to Ferrari after testing the W15 in the simulator. Asked 2 days after being informed of Hamilton's decision if he had driven the W15 in the sim yet, Wolff told the media, including PlanetF1.com, "Today." Mercedes have since gone on to record a better season than the previous 2 years, with the Briton winning 2 Grands Prix, Silverstone and Spa, his first win since his 2021 title fight against Max Verstappen. Overall, though, it has been a mixed season for the Brackley squad, as steps forward have been followed by confusion steps backwards. Horner reckons Hamilton is jumping at the right time. "It will be very interesting to see how Lewis acclimatizes to life at Ferrari," he told TalkSport. "He's obviously coming out of a very comfortable environment, one that he knows very well over the last 10 years, or more than 10 years, so that'll be a change for him." Charles Leclerc is another very fast driver. But Ferrari is a team that looks like they're picking momentum up, so for sure a driver of Lewis's quality is always going to be a challenger. And I think Ferrari, he could be just jumping at the right time. I think he's obviously seen things that he's chosen to change teams for because he believes in the future of Ferrari, so that's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out. Hamilton has previously called his swap to Ferrari the realization of a boyhood dream, having watched Michael Schumacher dominate Formula One with Ferrari. He says it was just the right time him to make the move. "I feel like it was obviously the hardest decision that I think I've ever had to make," he said weeks after the announcement. "Obviously, I've been with Mercedes for, I think it's like 26 years they've supported me, and we've had an absolutely incredible journey together. We've created history within the sport, and it's something I take a lot of pride in, and I'm very proud of what we've achieved. But I think ultimately I'm writing my story, and I felt like it was time to start a new chapter." Mercedes have 3 wins in total this season, but sit a distant 4th in the Constructors' Championship, whereas Ferrari have 5 wins and could yet beat McLaren to the team's trophy. The Scuderia are 36 points off the pace with 147 points still in play. Red Bull are a further 13 points back. Rivals and sometimes teammates as Red Bull juniors, Liam Lawson has revealed Yuki Tsunoda used to try to intimidate him on the track, only to get found out in Macau when he got too close. Although both Lawson and Tsunoda came through Red Bull's junior ranks and were in Formula 3 together in 2019, it has taken the New Zealander a bit longer to reach Formula 1. While his path included 2 years in Formula 3 before stepping up to F2, and then sometimes on the F1 sidelines while also contesting Japan's Super Formula, Tsunoda spent 1 year in F3, moved on to F2, and then joined the Formula 1 grid in 2021. Today they are teammates at Red Bull's junior team V-Carb, both with the aspirations of stepping up to the senior team. But while Lawson is said to be in contention, the media understands that Tsunoda is not in the running despite his upcoming postseason run in the RB20. Having been rivals in the junior series, they know each other's tricks, including one that Lawson revealed to the Red Flag podcast that Tsunoda used to pull in an attempt to intimidate him on the track. "Yuki used to do this thing. The first year that we were teammates was 2019, Lawson explained. "In FIA F3 we weren't teammates, but we did Euro Formula Open at the same time, and we were teammates in that. I got to know him pretty well. All year, in a practice session or a qualifying session, whenever I was on a cool-down lap, Yuki would come past me. He would always insist on just getting as close to me as possible. I don't know if he was trying to scare me or what. He did this all year." And then the tactic caught him out at the 2019 Macau Grand Prix. Racing for MP Motorsport and High-Tech Grand Prix respectively, Lawson revealed how Tsunoda pulled the same stunt on at the hallowed street race, but came up short. "We went to Macau, it's insane. Really bumpy and borderline can't believe they race there," he continued. "We both get phone calls from Helmut Marko, and he says, 'Whatever you do, do not crash in the first session because you need the time on the track to build up for the qualifying. Don't crash.' The very first lap I go out, I complete it, I cool down, and I see Yuki coming in the rear view. I'm like, trying to get out of his way, I'm up against a brick wall. and as he comes past me, he just clips my front wheel, goes flying and straight into the barrier. The gearbox is off the back. He destroys the car. He breaks my front suspension as well, so I'm out of the session. I remember thinking, I know exactly what you did. Nobody else knows. Everyone just thinks that we've had a clumsy little crash. But I know what he's done. I know that he's tried to get close and he's obviously hit a fucking bump because it's Macau and he misjudged it. Tsunoda was unapologetic for it. I saw him in the elevator that night, he said. I remember the elevator doors opening the first time I saw him and he's standing there and I looked at him. He smiled at me and I knew straight away that he knew exactly what he had done. Scoring 4 points in his first 3 races with V-Carb, Lawson is expected to continue with the junior team next season if he doesn't receive the call-up to replace Perez. Franco Colapinto's strong arrival in Formula One has created a small earthquake that threatens to shake up the 2025 grid amid rumors linking him to Red Bull's teams. The 21-year-old has impressed since replacing Logan Sargent at Williams, having scored points in 2 of his 6 outings with the Grove-based team. Although Colapinto doesn't have a full-time seat for 2025, Williams boss James Vowles admitted the team was actively working with rival squads to find a spot for him on the grid next year. Speculation during the Brazilian Grand Prix weekend went as far as linking him with a Red Bull drive alongside Max Verstappen, taking over the seat of the struggling Sergio Perez. The interest in the Argentine was confirmed by Red Bull executives themselves during the Interlagos weekend. Red Bull boss Christian Horner visited the Williams hospitality to meet Vowles, something that was not missed by those present in the paddock. While Colapinto is attracting interest from Red Bull, the question remains as to where he would be placed should he end up joining the energy drinks company's roster. According to rumors picked up over the Interlagos weekend, Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko sees Liam Lawson, who has made a strong return to F1 since the United States GP, as Verstappen's teammate for 2025. In this scenario, an RB seat would be available for Colapinto alongside Yuki Tsunoda. However, speculation suggests Horner's plan would be different. He would prefer to promote Colapinto directly to Red Bull alongside Verstappen, in which case Lawson would have his first full season in F1 at RB. Horner would be interested in this scenario to maximize the financial potential of Colapinto, whose popularity has exploded in Argentina and throughout Central and South America. The move would not be without risk, though, given Colapinto's limited experience having started the year in Formula 2. Horner's vision also would not support the work of the Red Bull Junior team, a program that was once flourishing but has stalled in recent years. For Marko, the possibility of promoting Lawson represents a return to the process that until a decade ago ensured the team was able to draw successfully from its own pool of young drivers. Placing Colapinto alongside Verstappen after 4 seasons in which the role was held by Sergio Perez would be a blow to the junior program, and it would find itself in the situation of locking its youngsters into RB for the 5th consecutive season. In the past, this has also been influenced by the caliber of the drivers, but Lawson appears to be doing everything he needs to do to be a candidate for a role in the team. At the moment, however, Colapinto is still a Williams driver. Vowles has raised the bar quite high for those interested in him, with rumors claiming a demand of $20 million. On top of that, a wild rumor has also emerged this week linking Colapinto with Alpine, despite the team having officially confirmed Pierre Gasly and Jack Doohan for 2025. But not all the choices have been made by the current management. Also endorsing this hypothesis was a test run by Alpine last Tuesday in Qatar with its 2022 spec, a test that was intended for junior driver Victor Martins and Doohan, but Gasly surprisingly also took to the track. Gasly's presence is believed by some as a desire from the team to have feedback about Doohan's performance. That is it for this one. I'll see you in the next.